Hello, Anthony Fasano here from Pass the PE Exam. Do you know the secret to skyrocketing your engineering career? Well, let me drop a surprising fact on you. Did you know that a large number of engineers are missing out on an incredible opportunity simply because they don't have their license? In this video, we're going to delve into a crucial role that a professional engineering or PE license plays in the engineering field with guest April Woods. April's a licensed professional engineer and Senior Vice President at WSP USA. Buckle up because this license can be a game changer for your career trajectory. This Pass the PE Exam video is brought to you by PPI, a leader in engineering exam prep for the FE and PE exams since 1975. PPI provides expert prep courses and study resources designed to help you pass the PE exam the first time. PPI's live online courses include hours of lectures, problem-solving demonstrations, exam strategy sessions, office hours, and a passing guarantee. When you take a live online course, PPI guarantees you will pass, or you can take the on-demand course for free. With study guides, practice exams, and more, the PPI Learning Hub offers digital practice and review that you can take with you anywhere you have a device so that you can prepare during the times most convenient for you. Check out PPI today at ppi2pass.com to see all the options available for PE exam prep. Let's dive in. So April, welcome to Pass the PE Exam. Thanks for spending some time with us today.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to talk to everybody about why it's important to get your PE licensure and just really excited to take this opportunity. So thank you for having me.
For sure. So just to get us started, tell our listeners a little bit about yourself. What is it that you do at WSP? Tell us about your career background to date.
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of have a unique journey. I have been at WSP actually my whole career. I was part of a small boutique firm back in Texas that got acquired actually a decade ago in 2014. But I had started out my career at this firm. It was called CCRD. Right out of college, I actually was an intern for them and then rolled into a new hire. And then a couple years into that is, when I went and got my PE and then kind of progressed up through promotions that eventually led me into Florida. So I started in our Dallas office, came over to Florida about 7 years ago, and now I do run our Florida properties and buildings practice for all of our offices, which we have 5 offices now here in the great state of Florida. And a lot of my day-to-day now is, managing our clients, doing project management for projects. But where I have a lot of heart is mentoring our young staff and showing them a career path within WSP. So I'm very passionate about this topic, about passing the PE. I do believe it is kind of the number one thing that you can do for your career. And I have found that passing the licensure very early in my career, as soon as I was eligible, really opened up a lot of doors for me throughout my career.
Awesome. And we're going to dig into some of those doors and we're going to talk about one of your projects in a minute here. But before we do that, just real quickly in terms of building systems, which I know is the area you work in. So your degree is in architectural engineering. And would you say you worked in mechanical engineering, or how would you describe the work that you do or did?
Yes, absolutely. So I did graduate in architectural engineering from Kansas State University, go Wildcats, back in the early 2000s. And at that time, the PE did not have an architectural engineering licensure very well established yet. And so when I came into the firm, I started in mechanical engineering. With my background, I could start it in mechanical, electrical, plumbing, or structural engineering, or a specialty. Really with my degree, we learn acoustical engineering as well, low voltage, energy modeling, etc. But I decided mechanical engineering as my track. And then that was really my focus and has been a focus of my entire career. But as a building systems engineer, and even with students that come out with a traditional mechanical or electrical engineering background, we do still try to get everybody to be multifaceted with learning other disciplines. So I just came in with the advantage of coming in with a background that was multifaceted between different types of disciplines. However, I am a licensed mechanical engineer. Now, I could have taken a licensure for architectural engineering, and there's a lot of people that from my degree program that choose to do that. But my focus has really been mechanical systems, so I felt like that was the best path for me.
That's great. And that is an important thing for us to note here is that this is something that varies in each state. Not every state segments their licensure by discipline. Like for example, in New York, I'm a licensed professional engineer, like regardless of what I actually practice. But that's different in state to state. So that's something you should be aware of if you're getting your license in your state, how they look at you, whether it's a mechanical, civil, do they differentiate? How do they differentiate? I know in some states it's up to the whoever's practicing. You get your license, but then you have to practice ethically in what you know. And so you just be aware of that. I think that's something that's important to be aware of. But the other thing that I think is important about what April just said is you also don't necessarily have to practice something your entire career in exactly what you majored in school. That's another thing I like a lot about engineering. I worked in the civil engineering space, but I knew mechanical engineers that graduated as mechanical, but then came over to the civil infrastructure space and started doing civil type of work, right? There's crossover there. So I think that's another thing people get worried about. You do have flexibility as an engineer. When you get into your career, you can change it up a little bit. And I think that that's exciting. So April, you're working on Florida's first all electric hospital, which sounds like an incredibly innovative and exciting project. Can you tell us more about what this project entails and what makes it such a unique opportunity for an engineer?
Yeah, thank you. Well, as we know, there's a big focus right now globally on decarbonization and reducing our fossil fuel intake. So we have a lot of owners, healthcare owners, that have chosen to sign up for something called the HHS Pledge, and that is where they are outwardly sharing to the community their decarbonization strategies and goals for their organization. The organization that actually chose to do this all electric here in Florida, they actually did not choose to sign up for the pledge, but they do have some big decarb goals that they're trying to aim in the years 2030 and beyond. So part of that is electrifying. Part of an element of decarbonization is electrification. That's not the full picture, but that's part of it. And so we had the opportunity to design the first, what I'm going to call almost all electric hospital, because we do still have a
Mm-hmm.
gas kitchen. Um, there's a lot of chefs out there that don't want to have an electric kitchen where they're cooking on. So it does still have a gas kitchen, but it is a highly innovative and efficient plant where we're doing high level of heat recovery off of the condenser water loop to provide heating water and domestic hot water out into the systems. And we do have some supplemental heat that will be provided by electric boilers. So this is really exciting. I think as engineers, the most important thing about being an engineer and what we learn in engineering school is how to solve problems. And the only way that we're going to solve some of these climate change issues and problems in the future is really continuing to look for things to do, ways to do business differently, and how to be more innovative. Even outside of the decarb world, we're going to see our entire world changed by AI, and that is every single industry. And how do we leverage some of the new technologies out there to do our business more efficiently, more effectively, but still with the spirit of understanding that ultimately humans will still need to be part of all engineering projects. The heart of people will still be important, and the intellectual understanding of an answer being right or not will always be something that we have to be aware of. So, know for certain engineers will be important for decades to come, and robots will not just take over our jobs. We will find ways, though, to increase some efficiencies, I do believe. So I think that, so with that, and something that Anthony, you mentioned, the ethics of an engineer will always be important. And I think as we go into this new space of artificial intelligence, it will become even more and more relevant. And understanding that, as we sign and seal documents that may be produced in more efficient ways, potentially using, more machine learning with our designs and taking more human error potentially out of it, there is still an ethics to make sure that our designs are engineered soundly and with principles and with our own understanding as humans and not just a machine. So I think there's a lot that is evolving out of this space. And interestingly, in some concurrent paths, it's actually with this whole decarb, um, just kind of how that is pushing forward in this space. It's already creating some new innovation, even just in the way that we're thinking.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of stuff to unpack there, but I think first of all, that does sound like an amazing project to get the opportunity to work on, and I think that there'll continue to hopefully be more projects like that, right? Based
Mhm.
on, reducing carbon footprint like you mentioned, which is great. And engineers are going to play a role in that, which is exciting. And I think that what you said about AI is something also that we really need to think about, right? I agree with you that I don't think AI is going to replace engineers. And at EMI, we do a lot of work with engineering organizations across the country. We do mostly training, but we hear from them about the challenges of recruiting and hiring engineers today because there isn't enough engineers for all the work that we have out
Mhm.
there with our infrastructure and everything else that's deteriorating in our country in terms of infrastructures. What I would say is, to your point, is if anything, AI can maybe help us to get more efficient, which means that could be part of the solution of,
Mhm.
more work, but not enough engineers. And so hopefully firms will embrace that and engineers will embrace that. And we can find a way that engineers and AI can work together to, handle some of these challenges that we have. And so at this point, we've kind of established through a lot of the stuff that you said already that, obtaining a PE license is really important when it comes to career advancement. It's obviously unlocked some doors for you that we're going to talk about. But but I think a lot of engineering students and young engineers know that it's important, but it's a challenging thing to do to get your
Mhm.
license. So I was wondering if you could discuss any challenges that maybe you faced in trying to obtain your license and how you were able to overcome those challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I do think there are a lot of challenges, and I'd like to make sure everybody understands that, the day that you pass your PE, that doesn't make you any smarter or mean that you know anything more about engineering
Mhm.
than the next person. What it really shows is that you have the grit and perseverance to be able to pass a hard exam, two actually very challenging exams, and that you have the ability to kind of persevere through the hard times of the studying and getting to that next level. I mean, I think that that is really what it's showing the industry is a distinguisher. Obviously,
Mhm.
there comes with some baseline aptitude that is required to pass the exam, but a lot of it is just your ability and willingness to buckle down and do it. And I think that is important to acknowledge and then understand that that is how the community acknowledges it as well and sees it as well. It's also important to understand that our credentialing is very similar to any other professional service. So it's the same as a lawyer passing the bar exam. It's the same as how a medical doctor becomes an actual doctor, passing their boards. And so when we look at it in that realm and how the rest of the country and other organizations view this, we need to understand that it's taken very seriously. And I think the higher I have gotten up in my organization and the longer I've been doing this, I see that play out day in and day out how important it is to our AEC community that you have your PE. People really care about the initials. Actually, right when I was getting onto this podcast, I noticed that right away that Anthony had his PE,
Mhm.
and we actually had a conversation about it. So it is a distinguisher that is important, and it will become more important. I think as I mentioned about AI, I think as our kind of industry continues to evolve, this will be a constant that will be important. That everybody is going to be looking to see, have you been able to maintain your credentialing? So I think when you look at things that you come up against. First of all, the test itself has changed a lot since I took it. It was a handwritten, it was a test where, you brought in all your resources and you filled in these bubbles, and it's very different now. It's actually, you go to a testing center. They don't have specific days anymore. It used to be twice a year. Now
Right.
they have, you can schedule your exam any day of the week. I think it's great because that's our industry and society as a whole has become more flexible. The negative part of that is it's a lot easier to procrastinate. So I have noticed with my own staff, we really work to have them work through a work plan of what is your plan to take this exam? How are you preparing 6 months out to take this exam? What study material do you need? And I would say for any young professional that is entering into the engineering space, the number one thing that you can do for yourself is when you come into looking for a career is that you are actively asking these engineering companies how are they going to support you through getting your licensure. If you feel that this companies that you are interviewing with are not supporting you through your licensure, it will be more difficult. And I would say
Mhm.
companies that really care about your licensure are in general ones that are very respected in our community, that you want to work for a company that is going to support you through your journey. And that support system can look a lot of different ways. At WSP, we provide a lot of materials. We provide a very flexible schedule. We provide some time off to be able to study for the exam, to take the exam. Financially, we support the exam. So I would just really encourage people to really look for firms that are going to support you in your journey, and understand if your boss is going to support you in your journey, because that is very important. And then you just have to buckle down and do it. It's like
Mm.
anything in life. You have to treat it like a deadline. You have to put it on your calendar. You have to sign up for the exam. You have to create a structure for studying. And you have to see if you can find like-minded people that are going to study alongside you, if you can do that. And you need to do some research on your own to figure out, if there's exams or study practice exams that you can take, or practice courses that will help you get there. And I would say the number one success model for this, and the number one indicator is yourself and how motivated are you to do it. Um, but you just have to buckle down and have a plan, because life will escape you. Things will get hard. Work deadlines will creep up. And if you don't make the time for yourself with this, it will be a lot more difficult.
Yeah, again, lots of good stuff there, and I think the first thing that you talked about is so important. I want to touch on that again in terms of the credibility factor of having a license. When I did hiring for the consulting firm that I worked for at a college, we were hiring, new engineers, recent graduates. When we saw EIT on their resume, it just told you something about them. It told you that they were motivated in their career. They wanted to grow. They wanted to get to that next level. And
Mhm.
that's kind of like what you said, right? When you see that license on someone's resume, it automatically tells you something about them. And I think that's something that people do underestimate, because I know that there will be engineers in certain disciplines, whatever it may be. I'm getting into construction. People say I don't really need my license, or I'm not really going to do design work, so I don't need my license. And I totally would warn you not to take that mindset, because number one, you have no idea where your career is going over the long term, even if you start
Mhm.
out doing one thing. And secondly, it's a powerful thing to have a license in any profession. My daughter's going to be going off to college next year, and she's going to do physical therapy, which is a licensed profession, which is great. I told her, any profession where you have a license, that means that there's a small number of people that will do it. And that
Mhm.
means that you're going to be in the minority, and that you're always going to have opportunities for advancement in your career because you have that license. And so that's so important. And I think April's right. Things that are usually worth doing, they take a lot of effort. They're not easy to do. If they were, everybody would do them, right? And it wouldn't be as valuable as it is to have a license. So it's one of those things where you got to buckle up. You're an engineer, which means you're analytically trained. You know how to solve problems. So you can look at this exam as a problem and you could solve it. You could put together a study plan and solve it. I do agree with April that if you have an organization that you work for, like a WSP that supports licensure, it's going to make your life easier a little bit because they're going to support you. Because if you have to have a job and worry about your job and the stresses of a job and have a family and, everything that goes along with having a family, and then have to study and prepare for an 8-hour hard exam, there's a lot that goes into that. So if your company can support you, it takes a little bit of that stress away. And that's very beneficial. So kudos to WSP and any firm out there that's promoting and supporting their engineers to get licensure. That's a really big deal. And so what I want to do now is just shift gears a little bit, because oftentimes people will come on this show, April, and say a lot of what you said, right? Like, it's important to get your PE, it's valuable. What I always like to do is ask our guests to put it into real terms in terms of a project that they worked on, how the license has actually really helped you. Give us some examples in your career and how you've used it on your projects or used it in your day-to-day, just so that those watching this that are getting ready to take the exam you just have some more, proof of this concept that we're talking about here.
That's right. Well, so I'll use the example actually that is real time right now. So just this week, actually, one of my employees, she had passed the exam a couple months ago and then finally just got her licensure this week. And as part of our policy, we actually give people a bump in pay when they get their PE, just automatically. And I was reflecting on that this morning when I was putting in her pay increase and thinking about how immediately she brings more validity to our company as a PE than she did just as an EIT. And the reason for that is now in a meeting, people will notice that she has her PE and she will gain some automatic authority in everybody's eyes, that even though yesterday she knew the same amount of knowledge, but today she is now a PE. It just amplifies that she has a greater understanding in what we do. So what that can mean for most organizations is that is moving you more into a lead role on a project, because you are able to potentially even sign and seal the documents. Different companies have different thresholds of when people sign and seal documents. At WSP, we are very adamant about people that are responsible for the design to be the one signing and sealing the drawings. And so pretty quickly on, we have people, even under the authority of other engineer of records, start signing and sealing because we want their name on there. That's partly why they got their licensure, is to take the responsibility for it. So it's starting to take on a whole new element of, oh, I'm not just designing this. Now I'm ultimately responsible. I mean, ultimately your company is really responsible, but you had the authority to sign and seal it, and you were given the authority by your company. So you're just elevated immediately, and within your project, people will notice, architects will notice, owners will notice. They'll be like, oh my gosh, they got their PE. This is a big deal. So you start gaining authority on a project where you might be the lead engineer, you may be the engineer of record. That a lot of times, if you're taking more of a PM track at your company, you might start managing the whole process, because now you not only have become somewhat of an expert in your own field, but now you're starting to understand how the other disciplines all interact together. I'm speaking very much from the system side, where you have a mechanical and an electrical engineer on a project, and a plumbing engineer and a fire protection, and you're trying to mold all those systems together. So I think in real world, you are providing more value to your company. So use that for your benefit, and you are providing ultimately more value to the end owner. More PEs on a project, better. Again, it doesn't mean that everybody's smarter than they were the day before. It just means that there's a little bit more authority on the project, and people notice. Everybody notices the licensure. Everybody notices. You especially notice if a lot of people, if people have a lot of initials after their name, you're like, what are they doing? They have so many
No,
initials.
it's true.
That's a
It's
lot of
true.
credentialing. They
Yeah.
care about this. So I think there is almost an immediate day one act of that happens when somebody passes.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because a lot of our viewers here are people that are going to take the exam any day now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so someone like you might be their manager. And it's good to understand the manager's perspective, as soon as that person passes their exam, number one, you look at them in a different light, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just because of the level of knowledge. Like you said, they're not necessarily smarter from one day to the next, but it's that credibility and that credential that really brings them up in the industry, right? In our industry, that's very heavy on credentials. And then the firm is looked at differently. The project team is looked at differently. The community looks at you differently. All those things really add up. And And I say it, and you mentioned it when you talked about stamping plans. I mention this a lot on this show. I steal the quote all the time from the Spider-Man movie: with great power comes great responsibility, right?
Hmm.
Once you have
Yes.
that license and you start signing things, it's like a whole nother ball game.
Yeah.
And it sounds great when people talk about it, but when I actually remember sealing my first plan, I'm like, wow, now I'm really on the hook for
Big deal.
this, right? So
Big deal.
it also gives you a level of
Hmm.
accountability when it comes to your
Hmm.
work, right? That is a lot different than before, of course. And the last thing I'll say on that point is I was talking not long ago to a CEO of an engineering company, one of our clients, and in doing the PM training we do with them, I called out one of their participants. I said, hey, this guy's really sharp. I'm sure he's got a great, future at your firm. And the CEO's response to me was, yes, but he doesn't have his license. So it just goes to what you were saying about how you look at someone with the impact they
Hmm.
can drive. Listen, it is what it is in our industry. It's a credentially driven industry. Like, you can sign and seal plans or you can't, right? Depending
Hmm.
on your situation. So I want to share that story because if you're out there and maybe you didn't pass the exam a couple times and you're watching this video to try to get a couple of tips from us and really try to kind of push you over the edge, if you will, in terms of taking the exam and passing it, keep going. Because even if you have to take it
Yes.
5 times, once you pass it, it unlocks so many doors. And the one last thing I want to ask you, April, before I let you go is there a project that you worked on specifically that where your PE license maybe had a specific impact on the project, or that the fact that you had it impacted you that you could remember, that you could share with us, just to give us like maybe a project specific example? Is there anything that comes to mind on
Yes.
that?
I can remember a very specific project that I did where I became a PE during the middle of the
Oh,
project.
wow.
And I did not sign and seal. My boss signed and sealed the job. But I remember a dynamic shift in responsibility midstream of the project, just because I had gained that responsibility. And it wasn't like, oh, you're a PE now, you're going to kind of take over this now. But even the way the owner looked at me, the architect looked at me, there was a dynamic shift. There was also some very subsequent quick promotions and
Mm,
whatnot that just really escalated and quickened the path. And I would say, we're talking about this in a very positive light, like, hey, this is the positive impact of you taking your PE. I would say almost similarly, there is a very negative impact if you do not take your PE in terms of how that will stall your career progression. That is very real. And I just caution everybody to that. It does not mean that, again, you are not as smart as your counterparts that have their PE, et cetera. You may have the same aptitude. It's just it is likely you will not be able to advance as quickly and you will be stalled. This is especially important when you're looking for a new job. So if I get a resume come across my desk and it's somebody who's very experienced in the industry and they should have already taken their PE, I have a lot of question marks why they do
mm,
not have their PE. And now there could be reasons, and everybody can reason away why they do not have their PE. There can be life situations that have happened to you. There can just be multitudes of reasons, and I've heard every single one of them. But it is a question mark. It is like, how committed are you to this industry? If this is the single most important thing that you can do for yourself, you have not accomplished. And so I would just urge you, like, it could open or shut doors. Um, and I hope everybody hearing this will feel encouraged by it, not threatened, but encouraged that, like, you taking the step to pass your PE, there is nothing negative that can come from that. And if anything, there's just a bunch of beautiful things on the other side that will come from that, whether that's within your own company or outside of your company. So just really think about the impact either way. You not passing it will probably just close more doors than you were expecting.
yeah, it's great. And April, I really appreciate you spending time with us here. You really unpacked a lot in the last 25 minutes or so. And what I like about all the stuff that you shared with us is it's real stuff on real projects, because I think a lot of times people just say get your PE, but they don't really
Mhm.
elaborate on it, and we don't always hear like real examples, like the examples you gave us of when the person on your team got their license and right away there was like that light bulb for you saying, wow, look at how that really improved our company's maybe image in this community or on this
Mhm.
project. And then, like you just said, in your own experience with your project and some of the doors it has unlocked for you. And so, April, I want to thank you so much for spending some time with us once again. April Woods. April's a Senior Vice President at WSP USA. We appreciate you spending some time with us here on Pass the PE Exam and really sharing the importance of the license and your experience with it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with April. She's living proof of how a PE license can open up a million doors and opportunities for you in your career. So please be sure to subscribe to our channel here. We put out videos like this on a weekly basis to help engineers pass the PE exam. And if you have any other questions about the exam, just leave them in the comments below and we will read and respond to them. I'll see you next week on Pass the PE Exam.